Hey, this is the chair guy. A number of people have been asking for a longer, more in-depth version of the True Shape video, so here it is. When a lot of players first start wanting to play lead, one of the instincts is to memorize the entire grid of notes on the fretboard. And the only problem with that is if you just memorize the raw notes, you don't actually have the context, in other words, the structure behind the fretboard. Because unlike a piano, where the structure is very obvious, you have the low all the way to the high. You have one key for every note, and then you have the lowest octave, and the next higher octave, and the next higher octave. On a guitar, it's a lot more complex because even though on each individual string, the notes are in a row, when you have 6 of these strings next to each other, it's very hard to play three-dimensionally. And by three-dimensionally, I mean understanding the fretboard vertically, horizontally, and diagonally, kind of all at the same time. So, what I personally suggest is a 2-string method. For those unfamiliar with the chair system, this begins as a visualization method for breaking down the entire fretboard using a single shape. Because the shapes are all identical, except of course where they cross the B string, anything you play in one part of the fretboard, you can play in another part of the fretboard. Different colors indicate different octaves. So the notes contained in the green chair are going to be from the lowest octave, the purple chair from the next higher octave, the blue chair the next higher octave, and on down the fretboard. Any that are identical, like this purple chair, this purple chair, this purple chair, and this purple chair, are all going to be identical notes. And the good news is, once you internalize the first chair I teach you, which is the G-E minor chair, you'll actually automatically understand the whole structure of the fretboard. You just won't realize it at first. Because once you've played up and down these 7 notes enough that they're burned into your head, and you know the 12 notes of music, then you'll also know that right before the F sharp has got to be the F, and before that has got to be the E. That's the same E as this one, except that it's from the next lower octave. Between the G and the A is a G sharp, between the A and the B is an A sharp, and of course after the B is the C. And these 3 notes, because they're from a green chair, the chair is just going off the fretboard, then these 3 notes are identical to these 3 notes. And after these 3 notes are going to be the back of another chair. So these 4 notes are going to be identical to these 4 notes, except they're from the next higher octave, because it's the purple chair. And since the entire fretboard repeats after the 12th fret, just knowing the structure of these 2 strings right now is kind of the structure of the whole fretboard. Let me show you what I mean. If the guitar had been tuned EA, 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 then we would have something more like this, where the 2 string structures are right next to each other. And if we use this retuning, we could actually just play straight across with 1 octave here, the next higher octave here, and the next highest octave here. And that seems really cool and simplistic. The only problem is it would completely mess up your chords. So the guitar is actually set up more like this. But here we can start seeing the structure behind the guitar. We can start seeing F sharp C, F sharp C, F sharp C, G, D, G, D, G, D. They're just from different octaves, but they're straight in a line. Now, of course, because of the B string problem, these 2 strings are tuned 1 fret higher, and so we actually wind up with a structure more like this, but still, we have the same thing. We can see that this chunk of information is the same as this chunk, and it's the same as this chunk. We can see that the front of this chair to the back of this chair is identical to the front of this chair to the front of this chair. And that is something that just repeats all the way down the fretboard. And for me, this is a lot more helpful than just a grid of notes. And keep in mind that once you understand the G-E minor chair, and that allows you to know where all the notes are and allows you to understand the structure of the fretboard, then you can just slide those chairs up and down to play in any key. And remember guys, if you check out my website, musicalchairsystem.com, you can get diagrams and stickers and even a free diagram.